I'm live. Wow, that's pretty exciting. Just to give a quick synopsis, I'm coming on to talk about communicating during Mercury retrogrades. That was a good example, actually. And how sometimes things can be a little bit tricky, specifically gaffes in communications, which a lot of my friends are going through right now, and which I've gone through a little bit myself. So, we're going to talk about 2 tips on how to better communicate during a Mercury retrograde, and I am going to go live right now. Yeehaw. Um, yeah, this is inspired because, again, a few friends are going through things, and I'm going through a couple of things, and I was in the shower just thinking, oh, I'd like to go live. What could it be? And then I realized, oh, communicating during a Mercury retrograde, which we are in right now for the next 2 weeks as well, if anyone is keeping track, if anyone's keeping track. I am going to wait for a second until people get in before I start really pushing. But when you do come in, if you could give a hello, that's always helpful. So if you could come in fact, I think I have a banner that says that. When you come in, shoot a hello in the comments. I'm really at a point now where it's time to make some pretty massive changes to this format. So, hey, Steve, how you doing, brother? Oh, it's nice. I very rarely see you on these things. It's nice to see you, man. Feel free to comment anything you might be going through as well. Not just you, Steve, but anybody. Um, I basically am aiming to start to create this to be more of a call-in show. So that's going to be a part of the big push. I've got new tech here that I was trying to get going the other day. Now it is absolutely going, but looking to increase the tech in lots of different ways, so that I can do something like a little fucking cool. I want to do something cool. I've been a dad now, and really focused on fatherhood in a very immersive way for the last few years. And it's to the point now where our beautiful boy is, hey, Lena, how you doing, sweetheart? It's to the point now where our boy is a toddler, and he's going into being a young boy. And it's just time for me to start doing my work again. It's time for Lily to start doing her work again. She's got all kinds of great things in the lineup. And the idea is that it is time to do something fucking cool. So hello and welcome, everybody. I'd love to have a chat, and I am also going to put, hello, a happy Mercury retrograde to you, Nadine. Yeah, it's interesting. Again, my stuff hasn't been too bad. I have noticed that a lot of shit's going down, and sometimes these communication issues aren't big, massive things. In fact, most times they're just small things, and those small things get bigger, and those small things, we feel like we're so far apart from the person we're communicating with because internally we're going through some sort of stagnation or confusion, and it ends up making it so we say things that we might regret, or we don't communicate in a way that is going to be helpful. But interestingly, again, I've got 2 big tips, and I'm going to go over them quite a few times, I would say, because, oh, that makes 4. So, where am I here? Yeah. 2 big tips, and I'm going to go over them a few times because, again, during these live streams, people come and go throughout. So I'm going to see if I can find a way to creatively say these 2 tips over and over again. There's quite a few people on here now, though, so I'm just going to go for it. The first big tip when realizing, so if you just, people all talk about it on Facebook or social media, you'll see Mercury retrograde's coming. The first thing is to just literally recognize that I myself have triggers and traumas, and everybody does, but being able to own that in a very conscientious way on the inside, I myself have triggers and traumas. The share link is not in the comments though, is it? Just one second. So I myself have these triggers and traumas is a really helpful, let me see, I can put this right here, paste, boom. If you want to come on, click on this link and it'll tell me that someone's trying to come on. Oh, okay. Yeah, does everyone see, because again, I'm sorry, I'm still working with new tech. It is a Mercury retrograde, please bear with me. Does everybody see the comment that I just put? Because it says that it's on YouTube, not necessarily on Facebook. So please just let me know if that's coming up on everybody's thing. I just posted the link right now. If not, I'll find a new way to do it. But the one big thing is to realize we all have triggers and traumas. And during a Mercury retrograde, all that happens is there's a greater chance for them to come out. And look, one of the things that I've been working with Lily for a while now is that if we have a trigger or a trauma, the likelihood of that just disappearing is very, very low. And the likelihood, yes, but where's the link? So you don't see the link right now. Okay, that is what I was trying to figure out. I can't, it's not letting me do that. So what if I go on my own? Sorry that this is a little bit silly, but yeah, I can do it through here. So how do I do that though? Okay, so you don't see the link. That's cool. I do have the link right here. And I'm just trying to figure out how I can copy that over into Facebook, but I don't really see a way to do it. So what if I were to take the link, which is right here, copy to clipboard, make a banner, So this is interesting, and it would be a bit of a pain in the ass, so I'm going to have to make it better than this, but this is the link right here. So if anybody wants to come on, like literally it'll say someone's trying to come on, and then I can bring you on, we can have a conversation. But everybody has triggers and traumas, and during a Mercury retrograde, the likelihood of them coming up is stronger. Now, the idea is that if a person can say, I have triggers and traumas, that puts us in a much better position than thinking that we don't, or trying to describe the many ways in which we don't. The truth is that as human beings, and with a fairly intense upbringing that pretty much everyone has had, and childhood conditioning, and relational trauma and pain, that the chances of there being a trauma of some kind to process is pretty fucking strong. Now, what me and Lily have been doing lately, and this is a really strong thing, I think this is the biggest tip I could ever give to anybody in this world, is that I never promise after we've had a communication issue or a fight around something, I never promise that it's not going to happen again. How often in relationships do we, because we don't want something to come up, you know, it fucking sucks when painful things come up. It fucking sucks when traumas come up. So, but there's a position of power, and it takes away the element of surprise as well. If we've experienced something, a pattern in relationships, let's say a communication issue, and it's recurring, so it's something that's been happening over and over again in different relationships, the same issue in different relationships over and over and over again. Even if we G ourselves up and feel this adrenaline rush that says, I'm never going to experience that again, I feel so solid in myself, because we do. We get into these states of beautiful solidity inside the self, and it's like, that's never going to happen again. Well, maybe it won't, but maybe it will. And I would say that if we internally say, I am not going to experience a relationship problem again, or a communication problem again, what's going to happen is it's going to surprise us when it does come up. We're not going to be prepared for it. Our partner's not going to be prepared for it, because we've said to them, oh, I'm completely finished with all that. You know, like that was my past. In my past, I had this communication issue. In our past, we had this communication issue, but now we're not experiencing it. It's done. So the tendency towards wanting something to be finished, or even experiencing a relief from a certain pattern, but then it actually having a chance to blindside us. So it comes from behind if we don't have it in front. That is a really real thing. So being able to recognize that if a pattern has happened in the past, maybe again, spanning relationships, if a pattern has come up in the past, it's likely going to happen again. And there's a very strong position of power in saying this is going to happen again. Like, and I don't mean I'm not manifesting, I'm not saying please bring it on. Just being realistic. Things cycle, things keep coming up, things will come up. And when they do, the ability to stand in it and own it is much stronger than trying to fix it, trying to overcome it, then in a moment of relief, deciding that it's gone forever. So that's one thing. And that, during, again, you hear, oh, Mercury retrograde is coming up, cool. The likelihood of patterns inside of me coming up are higher. The likelihood in patterns in this relationship coming up are higher. That's actually, it sounds defeatist, because again, we love things to be smooth all the time. We love that we didn't have to go through these things. But I have observed that that isn't something that is realistic. So there's a great power in accepting that issues that we carry are likely going to keep coming up. And then when it does, you can say, oh, my issue is coming up. oh, that thing that we're doing is coming up again. Irving comes and says the best thing we can speak of is that we're going to do better because we recognize it and do better to minimize its impact. Absolutely. And that was actually the second tip. The second tip is that when an issue is coming up, being able to communicate it directly to a partner. So the first one was internal. It's like anticipation, essentially. Like, I know that this is something that happens, so likely it is going to keep happening, so I'm going to keep it in here. Now let's picture we haven't been able to get ahead of it, and it has come up. Then having the humility basically on the inside to just say, I am triggered. I am in a state right now where I'm probably going to say the wrong thing. I'm probably going to do the wrong thing. I'm probably going to not communicate as eloquently and as lovingly as I possibly can. Being able to just own it straight up can be so fucking powerful. Now, of course, the trick is, we're all people with egos, and our ego does have a hard time, and mine does as well, everybody's does. We have a hard time accepting that when something is happening, that it's not justified. And justification is a funny thing because we can load any justification or excuse into a thing coming up. But the power, again, first of all, in being like, if things have come up in the past, they're likely going to happen again. And instead of with a partnership saying that's never going to happen again, it's actually more reasonable to say that probably is going to happen again. So when it does, what kind of strategy are we going to use in order to get through it or to understand one another? Maybe that's to take space, maybe just like an hour of space would do. Or maybe that's to go into it with different methods that we've created, like I feel statements. So you say, well, I'm feeling this. And the other person says, okay, I'm feeling this. And then you can find a way to get into it. But the other thing is, once it has come, let's picture we've crossed the line. So now we find ourselves in a fight. We find ourselves in a situation. Being able to own it, that this is what's happening, that I have a trigger coming up. And not necessarily going any further than that, though. Because, again, most times when we're going further into it, we're attempting to fix it. We're attempting to make it better. But sometimes, and oftentimes that's the next step, is trying to make it better. But the first step is often just owning it. I have a trigger coming up. That's a trigger for me. Like, there's fear coming up in my heart. And that requires quite a lot of self-awareness, though. And the feeling of, this is coming up for me. And, this is funny. I know this very, very well. And it's coming up really, really hard. I'm scared that you're going to leave me. Now that we've started this fight, I'm scared that you're going to leave me. I'm scared that now you've seen this trigger of mine and this aspect of me, you're going to leave me. But all of those things, if unacknowledged, can get worse and worse and worse, and if acknowledged, can put us in a place of power. Now, if you're lucky enough to have a partner who can communicate on that level as well, and say, hey, when you just expressed that thing, when you expressed your trigger, my trigger just came up. And then if both people can kind of bounce in that way, saying, my trigger is here, my trigger is here. Well, what are we going to do about that? Well, for one, let's just say that, again, this is the most beautiful thing that you can do. I love you. And this could be to a friend or to a partner or to a family member. I love you, just to make that very clear. Regardless of this thing that's coming up, I love you. Also, I feel a lot of fear in my body. I feel resentment in my body. I feel guilt in my body. And I feel like, all good, Steve. Thanks for dropping in. And there is a strong power, again, in, first of all, knowing that we've been through it before. Imagine in a relationship in particular, we've been through this before and we've gotten through it before. So we will get through it. So having that, not faith in a blind sense, but that faith in a repeated sense where we do get through it, can be very, very helpful and create stability. And then also the ability to, oh my God, I lost my sense of thought there. Yeah, so just remembering that if we are in ownership of the fact that things are going to come up, and that owning very directly the feelings in our body of pain, the triggers, the trauma that come up, that is a much better place to work from because it's starting where you are. So the ability to start where we are and express from that place, it's like simplifying everything, taking it down to its core and then being able to work from there rather than an idealization, for example, that we're never going to experience this pain again, an idealization that Our partner shouldn't feel the way that they do, and that we shouldn't feel the way that we do when we're in these fights. All of those things just take us away from where we are. They take us into a fantasy of where we'd like things to be rather than where we are. However, all of those same things, the ability to get through those things and into something clear, are much more increased if we can sit with what is in the moment rather than what we would like or what should be. So that in itself is just like, yeah, just an absolute killer. And being able to re-presence, meaning that, let's picture, again, in a fight, we often step out of the present moment. We're going into our past with that person. We're going into, we're going, if anyone actually does want to join, the link is not in the comments, but message or put a comment there, and then I'll be able to send you a link. Re-presencing, meaning that, let's picture we're sitting there present with our partner, and then boom, something comes up. Well, we might get knocked into past perceptions in particular. That's the biggest thing, especially with relationship cycles that have happened many times. We're going to get kicked back. And when we get kicked back, we're going to be in this other state. We're going to get out of presence. We're going to be feeling into our pain body. We're going to feel past perceptions that are plaguing us. We're going to feel future expectations and fears coming up. But being able to re-presence, and what we were talking about before, which is just owning that I'm feeling triggered, that is being present, right? I'm feeling pain right now. That is being present. It doesn't require anything more than that. But being able to start there and then get into a space of clarity, essentially, within oneself, and be able to share that with our partner can be really, really helpful. One of the things that me and Lily have really nailed down is, because again, when you're living in a bus with two active children, and we're trying at all times to do our best to make sure that all of our needs are fulfilled, all of our desires are fulfilled, all four of us, that there's bound to be things that come up. And being able to re-presence, like get back into a calm, open state of mind, to relax our nervous system and come back into the present moment is just, I can't describe anything more powerful. And it's funny because I can imagine previous relationships where maybe that same, because I'm carrying all the same stuff from other relationships into this one, right? And I can think about how many times those fights would turn into maybe weeks of fight or months of fight or whatever. Being able to process things relatively quickly, and we have to, because we have young children. Those young children need our presence. We can't be unpresent. We can't be walking around in pain for very long. Being able to re-presence, so get back into the present moment, get back into our bodies, calm our nervous systems down, have love and compassion for ourselves and for each other. Being able to do that relatively quickly really, really helps things as well. I will continue to find ways to communicate this so that the process is more clear and it would be easier for people to pick up and work with. But ultimately, the ability to own our patterns, own our reactions, even if it's the hard part. Once we're in the reaction, it's super hard to dial back and be like, hey, I'm reacting right now. But the more that we can do that in the present moment, the better. And then through that process, re-presencing, getting into a space of being open-hearted and ready to communicate, and communicating with I feel statements. Again, I feel scared. I feel excited that we were able to make it through that, where we might not have before. Being able to stick to I feel statements, being able to listen to our partners or our family or our friends' I feel statements can be really, really helpful. Lena comes in to say, these are probably conversations we should have when not triggered, like as a base. I can't imagine being in a state saying, I love you when I'm triggered. Yeah, absolutely. I totally hear what you're saying. And I'd say that the more communication outside of a trigger, absolutely the better. That is one thing, though, that after a short period of time, it can't happen exactly when things are flared. But if things calm down even a little tiny bit, being able to come in right there and just say, just to let you know, like, because, you know, the biggest fear that we all have is that our partner is going to break up with us. Like, when you think about any fight, any issue that's coming up, there is the fight. And then there's also in the background this feeling of, what if my partner breaks up with me? And that lack of security can then send a person into an anxious or avoidant state of consciousness. And then in that anxious and avoidant state of consciousness, we actually start to make things worse. So although it is not the easiest thing to say I love you and mean it and say it from a heartfelt place during an actual fight. Being able to in the broadest sense know that no fight is bigger than the security of a relationship can be really helpful. And it took a lot of time and energy for me to be able to get there with anybody. And it took Lily being who she was she is, sorry, for that to happen as well. So yeah, I don't want to speak about it like, oh, all you have to do is just say I love you. It's like, that's not true either. But there is power in knowing that no fight is bigger than a relationship, because a relationship is like two human beings, and especially if it's a committed relationship, and especially if it's a relationship where you've already made these commitments and made these understandings with each other, that no fight is going to be able to break that. And I would say that I very much feel that with Lily, and that does help things process faster. It helps us come back to a relaxed nervous system and out of anxiety faster. However, in the background, there is often still, and I even said this to Lily just 2 days ago, or 4 days ago, we got into a little thing. I said, well, I'll tell you, the truth is, I'm actually scared right now that you're not going to want to be with me after we just had that fight. And being able to express that in a way that isn't self-sabotaging. So it's not like, well, she's going to break up with me anyway, so fuck it, I'm just going to burn the whole thing down. But actually just say, hey, this relationship means so much to me, and I have anxiety in my heart right now, because what if you want to leave me after I just said that thing, or after we just had that experience? Being able to recognize, to own that. Again, that's the whole thing, is just owning the feelings that are coming up. Being able to own that, I find to be incredibly helpful and fast. Fuck, because again, if I'm not saying that, but I'm reacting out of that. So I'm not saying, hey, the truth is, I actually just feel really nervous that you're not going to want to be with me if we had a fight like that. Then if that isn't acknowledged, and the anxiety of that feeling of, oh, what if my partner doesn't want to be with me anymore, then it's so easy to just fucking implode and burn the whole thing down. Just like, okay, well, fuck it then. But that reaction is presuming that we're not going to be able to make it through whatever that was. And I think that any relationship of substance and commitment and that has a foundation, like I was saying, like you just confirmed, no fight is able to destroy that, and I just think that would be a cool understanding, because we live in a throwaway society, don't we? We also live in a society where it's just easy to throw each other away, and I've done that many times, and afterwards been like, wow, I just took a really beautiful relationship and just threw it out the window because it didn't suit my needs right away. So look, I'm a little bit jumbled in my speech right now, but I just want to, and I'm going to wrap this up here in a second as well. But the idea is that if something has come up before, it's going to come up again. And we can switch relationships. It can be a different person. It can be, maybe it's a family thing we're dealing with. And then we're like, okay, well, I'm done with that. And then all of a sudden it happens at work. And then all of a sudden, oh, no, fuck that, I'm quitting this job. And it happens at school, fucking teachers. So the thing is that we carry whatever we're carrying from situation to situation, from relationship to relationship, and not necessarily just romantic ones. In fact, not at all just romantic ones, and so being able to own that, to say, hey, I've got these things that are definitely going to come up, is a position of power. Because rather than, again, an idealization of, I don't want to experience that, so I would rather not experience that, so I'm just going to say it won't happen. It's like, that is nice and it would be good, but oftentimes then we're completely thrown off, or it's a surprise each time. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm experiencing this. Whereas, and it's not a very honeymoony thing to say either, because right at the start of a relationship, we think this is going to be different. This person's not the same as those other people. I'm not the same in this relationship as I was with the other people. I've got all these dopamine and all these hormones and all these understandings, and I'm more mature than I was before, and this person's more mature than my last partner. That's all good. Those are beautiful things to feel. But if we then create a blind spot to say, I'm not going to experience that again, the chances of it blindsiding us, and then not having the strength and foundation to be able to keep going, because we're knocked off center. Once you're off center, it's so much harder to communicate as well. So just, that's the first thing, is just remembering that I have patterns, and I bring them from relationship to relationship. I bring them from situation to situation. Being able to do that is an incredible position of power. And then let's say the awareness of that didn't propel us into not having a conflict situation coming up. After and during that conflict situation, just being able to simply own whatever feelings are coming up in our body with I feel statements is just, I can't describe the power. The power is just fucking wild. So I feel scared. I feel sad. I feel frustrated. I feel resentful. All of those things are completely valid feelings. And if we can own them directly by saying, that is how I'm feeling in this moment, and if we have established that style of communication in this relationship, friendship, family, whatever, if we've established that and two willing participants are saying, I am here to hear it, I'm here to hear it, I want to hear what you feel. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to react to those feelings sometimes too. It's not about being perfect, but being able to steadily work through by owning feelings, by owning patterns, and then by communicating them as clearly as possible, which might not be that clear at first, but as clearly as possible, is incredible power. There's incredible power in that. And then the other thing is just represencing. And that means that once we get into our pain bodies, once our past perceptions take over, it's really, really hard to do that. But finding some method of calming down our nervous system, represencing, getting back into the present moment, and remembering that the connection with this person is already there. We don't have to fight for a connection. Oftentimes those connections are already there. They get obscured by pain, they get obscured by past perceptions, but ultimately that connection is still there. So remembering that we didn't lose anything, that's an illusion to some extent. We didn't lose anything, we're just in the middle of something quite tough. That understanding can allow us to reorient ourselves back into a present state, back into an understanding, and then hopefully be able to hear those I feel statements from the person that we're working with. And maybe it doesn't work that time. Maybe we gave it our fucking all, and whoop, that's not working. Take a day of space, take some time, take a moment to step away and then come back to it. There's a difference between avoidant behavior, and avoidant behavior in this scenario would mean I'm taking space from you and I don't want to be near you, and you walk away, versus fuck, I am not going to help this situation if I keep talking. So I'm going to take some space and get myself reoriented, and then I'll come back. That can be helpful. Or if you can with your partner, do a reset. That's the words that me and Lily use. So, hey, can we do a reset? And if we're both in a present state and are able to access a reset, that can be incredibly fucking powerful. Hey, like just to say, look, this is all getting out of hand. Things are going wild, but we're a loving partnership. I love you so much, and our commitment is strong, and our understanding of each other is big. The ability to then suggest, would you like to go for a reset? Would you like to do a bit of a reset right now? Can we reset? I found to be incredibly helpful. I am watching my son walk down the driveway. Oh, there he goes. I'm just making sure that he is with somebody, and he is. Yeah, so just, I was in the shower and I was trying to think of something to talk about, and this came up because, again, a lot of my friends are going through different scenarios and situations as well, where it might be helpful. I'm going to sign off here in a second. If you feel like supporting the work that we're doing, we have a Patreon for a monthly subscription or a one-off donation through Humanitix. I'm going to put the link in the comments after the broadcast is finished. So if you do feel like supporting us, it would be really helpful. We actually have come into some money troubles, and this is what we're actually processing right now as a family. That being said, I also am going to keep doing these live streams, but I'm actually going to be putting things more into course format and being able to do something a little bit different. But I still love these off-the-cuff communications. I love being able to just go live and speak in the moment and make the mistakes that happen when a person is talking to and stumble and keep going. There's something really beautiful about that. And that is exactly what we're talking about in relationships. There's going to be times where we stumble. And if we can learn to keep going in a way that is healthy to ourselves and to the people around us, that can be super helpful. Lots of love, and we'll see you again.